the Gemara that we learned, we're on page 62. Let me mute everyone. Samach based Amud Aleph 62a, and the Gemara that we learned, we're talking about the laws of tznius, the laws of modesty, and we mentioned about there's a Kabbalah, there's a tradition that regarding issues of snakes, scorpions, and mazikin demons, that the trick, the way to save oneself from these type of issues is tzniusa ushtikusa, is modesty and silence. And the Gemara also said that there's a tradition regarding suffering as well, that the way to deal with it is shtikusa in miboy rachmi. It's being silence, which the understanding, at least the way we explained it, was that a person is not, this is Rashi's, I should say it's Rashi's explanation, that it's shelo yeva'et b'yisurin. Person shouldn't fight back. He shouldn't fight the suffering that he has. Instead, he should accept it with quietness and miboy rachme, but he should pray for mercy from Hashem. So it doesn't complain, without complaining, without these. Then the Gemara mentioned about Abaye, and Abaye, his mother or stepmother, she raised a sheep that would follow him, so that he would not be endangered from like going to the bathroom with the demons and so on. So the sheep would somehow save him from any issues. It was always with someone else. Again, the demons we understood. We learned that the main issue of demons is when you're alone. So sounds like if you have an animal with you, or at least a sheep, it's good enough. That's what it seems like, that helps. In other words, even if it's not another person, somehow a sheep helps. The Gemara asks, why not a goat? Maybe she should have given him a goat. And the Gemara answers that somehow a goat doesn't work. It's interchangeable with the demon, which is called goat. There's a demon that's called goat, and therefore it wouldn't offer protection. I wonder if this is connected to the So'ir Hamishtalech, the scapegoat. I wonder if that is somehow connected to the demons, because there is a famous. Ask you that. Yeah, there is a famous Ramban that I have to look it up, but it's talks of when it mentions that there was that they would throw the goat off the cliff. So the Ramban explains over there that it's a concept of you sometimes have to quiet down the koyach hatuma by giving them a little. You throw them a little bonus, and it quiets them down. So that concept sounds almost like maybe connected to the fact that the demons are connected to goats, and if we would throwing the goat off the cliff maybe is connected to giving them what something that they like, giving them this scapegoat. In this way, they're satisfied and they don't bother. They don't fight Hashem's judgment to accuse us of any wrongdoings and so on. So I have to look up that Ramban. I wonder if there is some connection with the scapegoat and the fact that the demons are connected to goats. Yes, David, is that your hand up? Yeah.
Yeah. I came across an article yesterday in Chabad.org by Rabbi Nissen Mendel about laws of the morning routine and decency in the bathroom. So one of them says, this is exactly what we're talking about with the directions. It says, when one eases himself in case of emergency in the open, he should face either south or north and never east or west. But if there's a wall, his back should be to the wall, regardless of the direction.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that's connected to the so wait, say that one more time. So the east or west, as long as there's a wall, it's fine. He's facing the wall, so he's not exposed. Right.
Yeah,
It's new.
The other,
it
yeah,
says it's in an emergency. Good. He's in the open. He should face either south or north, never east or west. But if there's a wall, his back should be to the wall, regardless of direction.
Right. Okay. Because the which is basically what the way we explained it, the final conclusion, which is not the way Rashi, the way Rashi learned. According to Rashi, it would depend on where is Israel. If you're north of Israel, then you shouldn't face south or north. In other words, I'm sorry, you shouldn't face north because your back will be to south, and if you're you'll be direction of the Jerusalem, but the way we saw in Shulchan Aruch is they're not learning the way Rashi learned. They're learning the main thing is about the Shechina is in the west, and if it's all about the Shechina being in the west, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. The Shechina is in the west. Shechina is in the west. You never face east west. So right, that's the way we saw in the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, thank you, David. Yes, Robert. You're muted, Robert. You see your lips moving.
Okay, now you can hear my lips. Thanks.
Yes.
The original annotation is from the book of Leviticus. A scapegoat is one of a pair of kid goats that is released into the wilderness, taking with it all the sins and impurities, while the other is sacrificed. The concept first appears in the book of Leviticus, in which a goat is designated to be cast into the desert to carry away the sins of the community.
So that's the simple reading of the Torah, but there is an interpretation of Nachmanides, who writes something to the effect of that we are. Just like you sometimes give your enemy something so they quiet down, you give them a lollipop and let them stay quiet.
It's a deflection. It's a deflection, right?
Deflection. So we somehow throw the scapegoat to it's supposed to quiet down the enemy, the impurities. So I was making a comparison, and Ezra was thinking of the similar thing. That this idea that our Gemara says that the goat is the demon in the bathroom is considered like a goat. It's somehow a goat demon. So we were thinking maybe there's some connection between throwing the goat off the cliff to give the demons. You're feeding the demons, giving them some bonus because they are goats. In other words, there's some element of goat that they are. They're called they're goat-like, that's the, so I don't know. So I have to look up that Ramban and see if he connects, if he has any, if there's anything that, if there is such a connection. Let's see. Yes, Moshe.
If I'm not mistaken, there was in Mexico. I don't know if it's still the case. I know the term was coined chupacabra, which is a goat eater, which is a man who resembles a goat. You know what I'm saying? I'm not 100% sure if this is a superstition or if it's real, but I heard that it does exist. That people try to stay away from them.
Wait, that a person could look like a goat?
That they are part goat and part human. They're called chupacabras. Yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
It's a human dressed like a goat.
It's
No,
more than that. They actually look like goats, yeah.
I mean, people call certain beards the goatee beard.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. It means like the person is attacked by a demon somehow attached to this. Interesting. I mean, there are laws. It's interesting. There are laws in the laws of in the Hilchas Nida, laws of birth, that what happens if a certain embryo is in the shape of a fish or in the shape of a I wonder if it mentions they're a goat, but that's like the question is the mother tame impure for birth if it's not if it's not a human, if it's not fully. Anyways, that's interesting that you bring that up. Thank you, Moshe. Okay, Ben, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I think that when we send the goat to Azazel, the demon should actually be upset and think, oh, we are trying to get rid of the demons, because a goat is compared to a demon.
Right. That's another, you're right. That's the flip side of you could look at it that side. We're throwing it off the cliff.
Right.
Killing the demons. Okay. Anyway, I have to see that. I have to look up that Ramban. Okay. Let's go. Yeah.
In England, in England, they have a yeshiva. It's called Goat's Head Yeshiva.
Gateshead, not Goat's Head. All right. So then the Gemara mentioned that Rava at one point became the Rosh Hashiva. So before he became the Rosh Hashiva, the head of the academy, so his wife, who was the daughter of Rav Chizda, she made some type of a bell, a rattle, where she attached a amguza, which is a walnut, into a copper type of receptacle, and it would bang. The walnut would bang on the wall of the copper. It would bang on the copper and it would make noise. So she would rattle that when her husband went to the bathroom, I guess right outside. So somehow it was loud enough to scare away the demons and the snakes and so on. Somehow that would help. Maybe just demons. Now after he became a Rosh Hashiva, so the thing is that the demons have a much stronger desire. The greater a person is in Torah, they have a stronger desire to hurt them. And so when he became a Rosh Hashiva, that wasn't good enough. She decided she got to do something more. And what she did was she made a little window. So I guess he went outside, and that's where that's where the bathroom was, so to speak, right outside. So she made a little opening that she could stick her hand there, and like a little window, and this way it was like she was with him. And as we learned, two people generally scare away the demons. So it wasn't enough. Put her hand on his head, right? And that somehow was like two people are there, and that would be bring safety against the demons. Okay, then the Gemara here now jumped to halachic rulings, and the question was not so much which direction person should be in now, but we're dealing with the laws of modesty. So if a person is with a group, how far must they go away from the group in the olden days when they didn't have regular bathrooms? So this is the Gemara. Actually, let's just read it inside because we hardly got anywhere in this Gemara. Let's start from the beginning of it. Amar Ula, we're on page 62a, and we are like right in the middle of the page, maybe about 35 lines from the top.
Amar Ula, okay.
Amar Ula. The last word on the line is achoire. Achoire hageder. So the Gemara says, Amar Ula. Ula said that Achere hageder nifne miyad. If you're behind a fence, then a person could relieve themselves right away. They don't have to go far and distance themselves far. They could. That's it. They could relieve themselves right there. And what that means is, even though if they pass gas, people might hear them. That's not a problem according to the laws of tznius. You might be embarrassed, so you might not want to do this option. But according to the laws of tznius, of modesty, it's okay as long as you're behind a fence. You're fine. Babika calls man shemasate shvein chaver shemeh. Babika in an open valley, in a valley or an open area. So it's whenever, as long as a person, you should distance yourself the extent that if you pass gas, no one would hear you. The people wouldn't hear you. That's how far you should distance yourself. So, which means that even though person could be seen, Rashi says, even though you might be seen at that point, but as long as you're far enough away, that noise that they're not going to hear, you're passing gas, that would be modest enough. Now that's the opinion of Ula. That was considered a lenient view. Then we had a more strict view. Isi Bar Nosson Masni Hachi. Isi Bar Nosson was more strict, and he said, "Achere hageder, if you're behind a fence, that's not good enough. You can't just. That's not good. You know, there's a group on one side of the fence, and you're on the other side. It really has to be Kol Zman Shemasate Shvein Chaver Shemeya. So long as a person would pass gas and his friend would not hear him, that would be the distance. I wonder if that would apply nowadays in a bathroom. Some bathrooms, they make the walls so thin, and you can actually hear person in the bathroom sometimes. I wonder if this would be, according to this view,
the bottom of the door is usually cut off anyhow.
the bottom of the door is a little open, right? Yeah. Especially in commercial places where they have bathrooms for a number of people. So there you for sure hear each other. I wonder if EC Bar Nosson would hold that's not allowed. Again, we don't hold this way. We don't paskin that this is a problem. We paskin like Ula in the first halacha, in the first law. So for us, it's not an issue. I'm just saying, according to EC, he would probably hold you need full bathrooms. It's not enough to do these half walls. Practically speaking, EC Bar Nosson might, and even if it's a full wall, it depends if it's soundproof, somewhat, to some extent, Yes, Ezra.
So the question I have, I think they're talking here about when, one Jew is within earshot of another Jew. But in the case where if we're in a bathroom, let's say a public bathroom or things like that, where the majority of the people that are there are not Jews, I don't think that this would apply.
I'm not sure. The law of tznius I don't know if that's connected only to Jews. Do you have a source for that? I don't know that it would apply.
I'm assuming that was the case. Why would it apply to everyone? Since non-Jews don't have to follow the rules that are given in halakha.
It just seems to me that the laws of tznius have to be are laws of modesty. That have to do with the fact that there's any human around. That's what it would seem to me. If you prove me wrong, that's great. But I'm assuming if you found the source, let's say if you found the source. But I believe the laws of tznius would apply apply to all.
Because in that case, then we would have a problem in all the shuls, since most of the doors above and below have openings, so anybody and everybody can hear anything that's happening in the next stall.
Right. So the halacha follows ula in the first law, that once you're behind the wall, you can relieve oneself, and there's no problem, even if someone else can hear you. Right. That's Ula's view. Ula had the more lenient view, and Isi Bar Nosson is more strict. So I mentioned that according to Isi Bar Nosson, it seems that he wouldn't go with what goes on, with the way they build public bathrooms here. Now, I'm told that in Europe, that most bathrooms are like full walls. I don't know if that's true, but they're more, maybe in England, they don't do the half wall bathrooms. Maybe there's more level of modesty over there, if that's true. But we don't hold like Isi. So for us, it's not a problem. Here, I'll pull up the Shulchan Aruch here.
I thought, Rabbi, there's a gimel after his or before his view.
Yeah.
My assumption that is the halacha.
Well, first of all, it doesn't always work that way. It's just showing you where it is in Shulchan Aruch. It often is that way, that it'll be the halacha, but it's not always. But second of all, the gimel, do you see it by Ula or do you see it by Isi?
Isi by Natan.
Uh-huh.
I have a gimel there, and it says, I guess it's the Tu Shulchan Aruch Sham Seif Chet, the second page.
So what I was going to read from you is exactly there. The Shulchan Aruch says that now 1 second before I do this. What do you see by Ula's statement? Do you also see a gimel there? Amar Ula Achoyrei Hageder?
No.
You don't have, because my Gemara has a gimel by Ula. Uh-huh. Okay. Well, the Shulchan Aruch says Kishenifne Basada Imhu.
Right. No, there is one there by Ula.
Oh,
the one that's by Isi by Natan is in square brackets. So I don't know whether that means that it's not
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is. Where did that gimel come from?
Square brackets are not to be taken into account.
No. Generally the square brackets are. It's the parentheses are not.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. Yeah, I have to figure out where that gimel came from. In any event, the Shulchan Aruch says that when a person is in a field, if he's behind a fence, behind a wall, so he can relieve himself right there, and even if other people are around, they could hear. It doesn't matter. It's as long as tznius, he's fulfilled his obligation of tznius. So it sounds that sounds like Ula. Sounds like it's following Ula. Which what is surprising is when there's no fence, it seems like we follow Isi Bar Nosson. So it's interesting that Ula says two statements. We follow him in one statement, and we follow the other rabbi in the other. But okay, so anyway, bottom line is it's not a problem. Don't start questioning your public shul bathroom. They are kosher because according to Ula, as long as there's some type of a border, a wall, as long as there's a wall, it's not a problem. And Babika, now the in an open area where there is no fence, no wall, it's a valley or just open area. So Ula said, as long as no one can hear you. And Isi Bar Nosson says, Kol zman shein chaveru ro'ehu, your friend can't see you. So that's further away. So Isi Bar Nassan seems to have this more strict view on both. And again, as I told you, the first halacha we don't follow Isi, but the second halacha we do, and that's the end of that paragraph in the Shulchan Aruch. It's babika, in a valley. You should go far away ad makam shalayuchal chavera lirais peruai, to a place that your friend cannot see you being exposed. So that is the more strict view of Isi Bar Nassan, because according to Ula, it was as long as your friend doesn't hear you. Yes, Robert.
Part of my thinking is, and I may be way off basis, but by having a wall, it provides for anonymity, and then essentially protects you or that other person from the embarrassment of defecating or doing something that is dirty. So it allows you some, again, I think it's maybe the matter of anonymity, and therefore, you save each of you save face in some way, because you have self-respect or other people's respect for you. Yeah.
Right, for sure. It's definitely an element. It's a level of modesty. The question is there more modesty required, or is that good enough? But yeah, it's definitely, you're right. It definitely is one level of modesty for sure. So the Gemara now asks a contradiction. It's going to bring a Mishnah or Brisa. So here it brings a Mishnah. The Gemara says, Meisvei, the Bnei Yeshiva asked a contradiction. They asked a contradiction from a Mishnah. It says, Yoitzin mi Pesach Beis Habad. They can go out from the entrance of the olive press, v'nifdin la'achere hageder, and they can relieve themselves on the other side, the back side of the wall. V'hein tahirin, and the olives will be pure. And this is based on the issue that we have throughout the Mishnahs and Gemaras. There was always an issue of people might contaminate your produce. Basically, for a few reasons, we had to be careful about produce being contaminated. One issue was truma, of course, is holy. But then there's also the issue of there were many people, many rabbis that only ate items, food that was pure. They would not eat things that were impure, even if they weren't Kohens. Even though the food is not like truma, it's not holy or anything like that. They were careful to eat chulin b'tahara. Chulin is regular food, mundane food, but they would make sure to eat it with only in purity. And they didn't want any am haaretz, any ignorant person who wasn't careful about these laws, to touch their food. And we know this in the Chumash. We have the story of Avraham when the guests came and he asked his wife to bring bread. And she didn't. And why didn't she bring bread? Because she was tameh at the time. And Persa Sarah Nida, it says, she became a menstruant woman, even though she was 89, but she was she surprisingly she started menstruating, and she couldn't bake the bread for Avraham because being in her state of impurity, Avram wouldn't have partaken of that bread because he was careful to eat only things that were pure. And of course, according to halacha, there's no problem. According to Jewish law, a woman who is menstruating is allowed to bake bread and all that. But in the time of the Gemara, at least, there was a strictness that people would only eat things that were pure. And Avraham seemed to take on this strict thing. There's no such rule now because we don't have holies, and there's no such thing. Everything is impure. Everyone is impure. The whole world is impure. But in the time of the Gemara, so there were many people, many rabbis, especially, they would only eat chulin b'tahara. Now, what happens when you're pressing your olives, and the person who's pressing it needs to relieve himself. So if he leaves, does he have to worry that the olives will become contaminated because someone else might come and touch them? So the Gemara says, brings this Mishnah that says that person can go out and go to the Achrei Hageder, the behind the wall, and relieve oneself, and the olives will stay, they'll remain pure. Now, what do we see from here? That there's obviously other people nearby, and as long as he's behind the wall, it seems to be fine. So that sounds like Ula's statement. You're behind the wall, you're fine. Other people can hear. If he passes gas, people will hear. No, it doesn't matter. He's behind the wall, he's fine. So that seems to contradict Isi Bar Nosson, who was an Amayra who shouldn't be arguing on a Mishnah. This Mishnah would seem to disprove Isi Bar Nosson. So the Gemara answers, no, it's not a disproof. The Gemara answers, but Taharis Hekelu, with regard to Taharis, with the purity of things, of food items, food kept in such purity, they were lenient, and therefore they allowed a person, they sort of were like flexible in this law. In other words, even though maybe, even though Isi Bar Nosson says normally this is the appropriate thing for the laws of tznius, but he says that because of regarding the seriousness of things that are to be kept pure, they were more lenient and allowed, as long as you're behind a fence wall, that would be good enough. So what it sounds like is that Isi Bar Nosson understands that there's two levels of tznius here. One is the actual being behind a wall, and the additional level is that people don't hear if a person passes gas. And that additional level, the rabbi said you don't have to be careful for when it comes to the importance of taharus, of things that are pure. Okay, then the Gemara says, Tashma, the Gemara comes and tries to bring another source that, which is actually the end of the same Mishnah, but it's another source to prove the statement that Isi Bar Nosson said regarding the Bika, regarding the valley or the open area. So the Gemara says, Tashma, come in here. Kama yerchaku v'yu tahirin, how far can the people go and the olives will still be pure? Kadei sheyehe rayehu, that they as long as they can see the olives, they'll stay pure. So, as long as they can see the olives will stay pure. So the Gemara says this sounds like if there wasn't a wall, they're going away like in a bika, in an open area. So it seems that they would not be able to leave further than being able to see. That means that if someone comes to the olive press, they'll see them. What does that mean? That Isi Bar Nosson, who said that by an open area you have to go away from anyone being able to see you, that can't be the halacha. That can't be the correct point. That can't be true, because what does a person do if there is no wall? They have to go And it says clearly in the laws of Taharos that you go as long as you can still see, as long as you're in visual distance, then you're okay. What do you mean? You're not allowed to defecate at that place. It's too close. So the Gemara answers that Shani Oichle Taharos da Akilu Bei Rabbanon. Those that eat Taharos are different. Those that eat pure things, the rabbis were lenient to for them in order to allow them to be able to keep the laws of Taharos, and they sort of were a little more lenient in the laws of modesty.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
Bika is valley. So in a valley, once you go down a little, they don't see you. So you don't have to go too far. That's, I think, what they mean here.
Well,
Bika is valley.
True. But a valley also allows for sound to travel.
Right. But
So
they don't
that's
see
why-
you.
That's why I think Isibar Natan basically said you have to go away as far as possible, so that not only can't they see you, but they also can't hear you.
But in
So
a Bika, they say, Kol zman שהוא לא רואה אותך, that he doesn't see you. Because
So-
you go
so I'm not-
down, they don't see you. So
But
it depends how far down. It depends how far down you go, and it depends how steep the valley is.
right,
There's
right.
valleys that are steep, and there's valleys that aren't as steep.
So
the thing
until they
is-
don't see you, means you're not, could be close, could be far.
Right. So if they see you, then the laws of Taharis is you have to stay in distance, in sight, within sight, right? That's the laws of Taharis. The laws of the bathroom, according to Isi, is you have to make sure to go out of sight.
Out of
That's
sight.
a contradiction. So do you
Right.
need to go out of sight? Then what is the Mishnah saying about the laws of Taharis? You have to be within sight. So that's a contradiction right there, and it proves Isi Bar Nosson wrong, because how could Isi Bar Nosson say you have to be out of sight if the laws of Taharis say, no, as long as you're within sight, you're okay. What do you mean within sight? I'm not allowed to be within sight, I thought, according to Isi Bar Nosson. I have to go out of sight. So that's the disproof that the Gemara is bringing. And the Gemara answers that you don't have to be out of sight according to the laws of Tznius always. Because of Taharis, they were lenient. And again, what it seems to be saying is that there is two laws here. One is be out of being able to hear, and the second law is out of sight. That extra additional element of modesty, to be out of sight, it doesn't apply to the the rabbis were lenient. You didn't have to have that extra level of modesty, which Isi Bar Nosson holds that it would be applicable to that because of Taharis, you could be lenient with that extra level of modesty. Again, Ula had said that all you need to be is without out of hearing, out of beyond the distance with the ability to hear. But Isi Bar Nosson said you should have an extra level of modesty, but that extra level didn't apply to the laws of Taharis. Now, Rav Ashi has another answer, and that answer, it seems, is what the Shulchan Aruch holds. Rav Ashi says, "My kol zman she'ein chaveru royek d'kamar." What does it mean? As long as your friend can't see you, that Isi d'kamar, Isi Bar Nosson, that Isi Bar Nosson said. What does he mean? That is your friend, that you have to be out of sight. It doesn't mean that your body is out of sight. It means that you're out of sight, your friend can't see your exposed flesh. That means he could see you, but he's not able to see the detail of that your flesh is exposed. So as long as you're out of that sight, that's good enough. So you're within sight, but your exposed flesh is out of sight. But he himself, you can see him. That's okay. You could see him as long as he doesn't see the exposed flesh. And that's what it seems from the Shulchan Aruch. And because the Shulchan Aruch says, and as I told you, that seems like the Shulchan Aruch is following Ula on when there's a wall. And it's following Isi Bar Nosson, at least the way Rav Ashi is explaining it, with regard if there's no wall, if it's a a valley or an open area, because it says ad makam shelo yuchal chaver liras peruai, that his friend can't see his exposed area. And even though he sees him, but as long as he doesn't, as long as he doesn't see the exposed area. Now the question is, I think I have to take back the little point I said, and I'll tell you why. I said there's two levels of tznius, and Isi Bar Nasan seems to only be careful about one. I want to say there's really three levels, I think. I didn't see this anywhere, but this is my thought. The first level is you don't see the person's exposed flesh. That's number one. That's tznius. So when he's behind a fence, you don't see his exposed flesh. You don't even see him. When he's in an open area, you're not seeing his exposed flesh. That's tznius. The next level would be not to hear his, if he passes gas. And a third level would be, that you don't see him at all. So when the Gemara answered that you could be lenient with those that eat taharis, that you could be lenient, and even though you're going to see the person, I'll have to think about this. So that's okay. In other words, with taharis, they were lenient, even though really you should be far away. You shouldn't even see the person at all. But with taharis, they were lenient. So what that means is that you could actually see the person.
But not the details.
I'm trying to fit the first answer with the previous thing. Again, the final answer, which is the halacha, is very simple. That that as long as you don't see their exposed flesh, then you're fine, and that's the final conclusion. You're behind a fence, you were fine. If you're here, you're fine. Now, the first Gemara's answer was that taharis hekelu, they were lenient. That according to Isi Bar Nasan, that even though they might hear, if the same thing would be applied to the second one, even if they could hear, it's fine as long as you don't see the exposed flesh. So that would seem to apply to both, that they were lenient. Or once you have this answer, yeah, that's what it seems like. According to Isi Bar Nasan, if they were lenient there, they're lenient here as well. It's the same thing. I'm just trying to figure out according to the first answer. According to the first answer, that they're lenient, that you could even see the person, and it sounds like you could even see the exposed. It sounds that you could even see the exposed flesh. Or no, maybe it means you don't see the exposed flesh, and you really shouldn't see the person at all. Now, it's easy. Bar Nasan holds you really shouldn't see the person at all. But as long as you don't see the exposed flesh, once you have that level, yeah, that's what it seems like. Again, so I wanted to say that there's three levels, and I think that's correct. Number one is you don't see their exposed flesh. Number two is you don't hear them. And number three, you don't see them at all. So the ideal, according to Isi Bar Nasan, is that they're behind the fence. You don't hear them. and you don't see them, and that's the ideal. In an open valley, you don't hear them and you don't see them. That would be the ideal. But in the case of taharos, as long as you're not seeing their exposed flesh, so the rabbis were lenient, and it would be okay. If you're behind the wall, as long as the rabbis were lenient, even if you hear him, as long as he's behind the fence, you don't see him, that's there's room for leniency. So it seems
is that connected to Gilui Arayot too?
I mean, the term Gilui Arayos is a very it's just a very loose translation of revealing nakedness. What it really means is having intercourse, or at least it's not just revealing nakedness. It's actually living together, and
Yeah, but when you pee, it's Gilui Arayot too. So.
Right. But I'm just saying that the term when we use the term Gilui Arayot, it's not referring to that.
It can go far, but it doesn't have to.
So again, you're not you didn't transgress Gilui Arayos if you went into a place where there was people not dressed modestly. You know what I mean? It's not the sin of Gilui Arayos. Of course, there's prohibitions of thinking that of having thoughts and so on, but it's not the actual transgressing Gilui Arayos. So the Gemara concludes here that this is the way Rav Ashi understands it. Okay, so now comes the next Gemara. The next Gemara tells us about a little sarcasm here. The Gemara says, "Hosapdana denachas kamid Rav Nachman." There was a person who was giving a eulogy. He was in front of Rav Nachman, Amar, and he was talking about this person who had passed away. He said, "Oh, this person, tzanua bar choisav haba." He was very modest in his ways. So Amalei Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman said, "Really? He was modest in his ways. You went after him to the bathroom. V'yadati tzanua. You know if he was modest. How do you say such a thing? You're giving a eulogy about someone that he's modest. You know, you were there. You went after him in the bathroom. So the Tanya, because we learned in a brisa, Ein Karen Tanua Elamisha Tanua B'Veis. Person modest is someone who's modest in the bathroom. So how could you say something that's not that you don't know? Rav Nachman, my nafkalei mine, and the Gemara asks, what did it matter to Rav Nachman if he said something that wasn't 100% true? Who cares? Gemara says, Mishum the Tanya, because we learned in a brisa, the same way that we collect from the dead, from the dead, which means we punish the dead. We also punish the sapdanim, and the reason is the sapdanim means the eulogizers. And from those who say amen after what they say, meaning you have to be careful to speak honestly when you eulogize someone, because if you exaggerate and you embellish too much, they are going to demand from the dead, and not only that, but from the eulogizer and from the people who say amen. So you have to be careful to speak honestly. Now, I think in Shulchan Aruch, I think it does bring down that you're allowed to embellish a drop, but you have to be careful not to go overboard. You can embellish a little. The reason is because we assume that everyone does more than what we know about them. We know they're more righteous than what we know, but a little. But to embellish more than that, so that's why Rav Nachman was so he was confrontational here, and he confronted this sapdana, this eulogizer, this person who was giving a eulogy, and told him off. Why did he tell him off? Because you have to be very careful not to not to give false praises of a person. So that's the story about modesty.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I guess that's probably the reason why the rabbi who eulogizes someone who's passed away will, I guess, sequester themselves with a member of the family to find out as much as he can about the individual before he says anything at the eulogy, so that
Right,
he doesn't.
sure.
So he doesn't say something that was out of place.
Well, I mean, the main reason he does it is because he actually knows, wants to know the character of the person of the deceased, that. But in addition, right, you might want to go over some things to make sure they have clarity, that he has more clarity. But yeah, sometimes it becomes complicated. Like I remember I once did a funeral for someone. He was a little bit of a crook. He was never, he wasn't put in prison, but he used to, lie to people and relatives and tell them that that he's this and that. He would try to get them to give him money and so on. And he wasn't, then I had to try to figure out how to eulogize him. And it wasn't so simple, But the good thing in Lubavitch is that they don't do eulogies. And this is, I think, the reason why they don't do eulogies is because it's like it's a very delicate issue, because if you say too much, then they demand in heaven. And if you don't say enough, then they demand from you, well, you didn't eulogize the person properly. So if you just don't do eulogies, I think again, I don't know the reason why it's customary not to, but I'm guessing that it has to do with you're doomed either way. If you say eulogies, so if you say too little, you're doomed because you didn't eulogize the person properly, and if you say too much, then you're doomed because you spoke things, as our Gemara says, that they're going to demand from you. Why did you lie about the person? They're going to demand from the person who died. Why didn't they? You said that they were so giving and so caring. It's not true. So they're going to demand from them. Why weren't you so giving? You were supposed to be. Look, they even thought that you were giving. So they demand from you're doing a disfavor to the deceased.
And
so
you don't know if somebody did tshuva.
Right. You don't know that either, right? You never know. But the thing is, you have to be careful, because they, if you say bad things, then the person who gave the eulogy, if he says something negative, besides that it's inappropriate to say something, but if you would say something negative, for sure it's going to be held against you. You spoke about this righteous person in a negative way, and that's it's something that they'll demand from you punishment. Okay, they'll exact punishment from you. Okay, we're up to the next Gemara, Tano Rabbanan. The rabbis learned. Tano Rabbanan, the rabbis learned in a brisa, Izehu Tsanua, who is someone who is modest, Zehanifna Balayla, B'makam Shenifna Bayoim. This is a person who relieves themselves at night in the place where they relieve themselves during the day. And the simple understanding is that just like by day, a person generally will go far away from where people are. So at night as well, they would go far away from where people are. That's what the Gemara thinks. And if a person does that, that means he's a tsanua, he's modest. The Gemara asks that so. Rav Yehuda Marav, doesn't Rav Yehuda Marav say, a person should always accustom himself to relieve himself in the morning and in the evening. Why should he do that? So that he will not need to
go too far.
Go far away, lehisrachik, and in this way, if he goes,
because they can't see you well.
What that means is if a person would relieve themselves in the early morning and late at night, so because it's dark, you're able to be close by and relieve oneself, and that there's no one around. Now, the way the Gemara makes it sound is that it's from the Brisa, it sounded that it would be much better that the real modest person is someone who goes far away at night to relieve themselves. Now, that doesn't seem to fit with this statement of Rabbi Yehuda Marav. That sounds like, oh, if it's at night and if it's early morning, which is also night, it sounds like a person could relieve themselves right nearby because no one's around. It's still dark out. And so that's the Gemara's, that's one question. The Sue, and additionally, Rava biyamama hava azalad, says Rava would distance himself. He would go as far as a mill. How long is a mill? Mill is 3/4 of a mile. A mill is takes 18 minutes to walk, and he would distance himself a mill by day. Uvalelia amar le'lashame pano liduchta. At night, he would tell his shamish, his panu liduchta, clear a place for me, in the street of the city. So Rava at night would just relieve himself nearby because, of course, it's dark out, no one's around, so he's fine. So again, the Brisa implied that a person should go, if they were during the day, they would go far away. So at night, they should also go far away. And the Gemara brought two sources that at night, if a person is relieving himself at night, either early morning, called night, or night at night, it's like perfect. You don't have to go far away. And we have a story of Rava that he would be, he would tell the shamish, make sure it's clear a place for me, and and he would relieve himself nearby. So v'chein amar le Reb Zera l'shame chaziman the ika acharei beis chavraya de beina lemifne. Chaziman, see if someone is man de ika acharei beis chavraya. If someone's behind the study hall or the gathering place, see if anyone's there. De beina lemifne, I need to relieve myself. So we have a third story, a third proof that Reb Zera also, it seemed like he didn't go far away. Now, it doesn't say clearly that this was at night, but that's the understanding, is that this was at night. So the Gemara answers, Loi tema b'makam ela ema kaderech shenifne b'yoyim. The Gemara answers that we understood the Brisa wrong. It's not a contradiction. The Brisa says if a person relieves himself at night, he should do it similar to the way he relieves himself by day. The Gemara initially understood it that it meant to go, you go far away from where there might be people around. That's not what it means, because you don't have to go far away at night the same way you would go far away by day if people were around. What it means is that a person should act in a similar way at night as they would by day, that modesty applies at night just like it applies by day. And this is a very innovative concept. In other words, something new that most people aren't aware of, and that is that just because it's dark, that doesn't mean you can expose yourself. Just because people think, oh, it's at night, I can expose it. I don't have to be so tznius. No, night doesn't change anything. The same way a person would act with modesty by day, that's how they should act with modesty by night. And what that means is that a person exposes whatever they need to expose in order to relieve themselves, but they shouldn't expose themselves more than necessary. and that the same that law applies by night just like it applies by day. And the Gemara gives one more answer. We'll save it for tomorrow. Okay, we're going to